Now that's the Kraken hockey we've been waiting for. Let's talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here. For those who listened to yesterday's episode, we went live first and then posted it later. We were going to hear from Zame. You get me today instead. That means you also get the UMA hat. And not my business to tell. Just want to, on behalf of the show, of course, and the greater Seattle Kraken community, just wishing Zame the best. And hopefully we'll have him back in action soon enough. But today's episode, we get to talk about a Seattle Kraken win. Now, granted, they did have the lead and then lost the lead, but they regained it in very dramatic fashion. So we're going to break that down. It was also the debut of Jani Nyman. We talked about that on yesterday's episode, got the proper pronunciation. Jani Nyman with his family in town, hadn't seen him play since January, he said, but an exciting time, of course, for the young rookie who made his debut. He said, of course, he was excited. Not only did he make his debut, not only did the Seattle Kraken win, but Jani Nyman with a beautiful power play goal. And it was just a great performance. We heard yesterday on yesterday's episode that Dan Bylsma, and he re-emphasized this after the game, he was really charging Jani Nyman, Jani Nyman, not exclusively, but definitely prioritizing that Nyman needed to take his shot. Brandon Montour told us after the game, more of the same. The advice that he gave to the rookie was to be yourself, to take the shot, take your opportunities. But it wasn't just Nyman who did that. The Seattle Kraken had a solid game. But if we look at the instant analysis write-up from Allison Lucan, here's what she had to say about Nyman. In his NHL debut, Jani Nyman played 13 minutes, 56 seconds of time on ice, including just over 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 seconds on the power play, shot the puck at the net 8 times, delivered 3 hits, and ultimately scored his first NHL goal, on the power play. It was a beautiful goal set up by the Seattle Kraken. I'll break down a little bit more about the Seattle Kraken play overall, but just wanted to stick with Jani Nyman. After the game, Dan Bylsma was asked what he thought of Nyman's, I keep saying Nyman, Jani Nyman's performance, and he actually flipped the question onto the person who asked the question, which was the one and only Darren Brown. Darren Brown said he thought he had a pretty good game. I'm summarizing, paraphrasing. But we heard again Dan Bylsma say, what I was focused on is him showing his game. What I was focused on was him taking shots, making sure he was getting into the action. And again, almost 14 minutes, 2 minutes on the power play, a power play goal, and 3 hits delivered. I'd say he definitely left his mark on this game. And that's exactly what the Seattle Kraken wanted. It's what the Seattle Kraken need from not just Nyman, but from the rest of the team. And this was a solid performance from the Seattle Kraken in that respect. And I, for one, am glad to see it. You love to SEA it, am I right? I know. It was right there. I'm feeling good. The Seattle Kraken get a win. And this was kind of a statement game. We saw that there were some fisticuffs. Uri Slavkovsky and Eli Tolvanen got into it a little bit. Uri had a pretty nice game. I told you I was looking out to see what he was going to do. And he did have a good game for Montreal and was able to score in back-to-back nights because, again, the Canadiens were on a back-to-back. Brandon Montour got the goal, got the scoring started. Brandon Montour got the final goal. and he is someone that we'll talk about a little bit later. But we saw Uri Slavkovsky. He had a brace, 2 goals in this game. Nyman, though, was set up by Montour and Eberle. Just a really good looking goal. It was Nyman and Matty Beniers for the Seattle Kraken that scored on the power play. And the Seattle Kraken overall, I thought, just were able to put together a pretty complete game. They outshot Montreal in the first frame 15-5. Love to see that. They did score the first and second goals, so they were up 2-0 at one point in this game. They also outshot Montreal 6-5 in the third frame. They shot 13 shots on goal in the second frame, the second stanza, as I like to say. Montreal, though, had 15, and that's where you saw Montreal start to tip the ice, so to speak. Not considered a quality start for Joey Daccord. There were, a few things that I noticed here. A little bit of a tough go defensively, I think, for Evans. I think he was in the wrong spot in that second goal. I think he gave Uri Slavkovsky too much space on, I believe, what was the third goal, Uri's first goal of the game. And so those are things that I still want to see the Kraken clean up. Remember, I'm not in the camp of defenses for nerds, so I'm still going to point out defensive lapses, so I don't blame everything on Joey Dax. Also, Montreal just picked their spots really, really well. And, I thought that this was overall a really good performance for the Seattle Kraken. This was their eighth comeback from a multi-goal deficit this season. That's the most of any team in this league. So as much as I say that there's inconsistency, sometimes I feel like this is a little bit of an absent-minded team at times. They are able to bounce back and snap back. And we saw that in last night's game. And it was an exciting game. It was a home crowd. It was a bobblehead day. Hopefully Joey Daccord is not necessarily barbecuing his bobbleheads like Dan Bylsma. Although someone did comment on YouTube that the Coachella Valley Firebirds didn't win on Dan Bylsma's bobblehead day. They did win on the Fuego bobblehead and the Joey Daccord bobblehead day. We saw the Seattle Kraken one on the Joey Daccord bobblehead day. So there you go. Some stats that are great. You can't see it because I have the blurred effect on today, but the Fuego bobblehead is sitting on this shelf right over here. I think the Joey Daccord one is in storage at the moment, but I thought this was a solid game from a team that wanted to prove what kind of hockey they can play. Now, I did want to see a little bit more Shane Wright. I know that we were live and Striatic said, I want to see a little bit of Capo Caco. I do think Capo Caco was involved and engaged, had some great play along the boards. But it was interesting because once again, it was Darren who asked about Shane Wright and asking why was he on that fourth line. Shane Wright centered Ty Cartier and Mikey Isimon. That gave the Stephenson line. We mentioned Eberle's on there. Tolvanen jumps up there. Beniers, Capo, and Schwartz stay together. Nyman, McCann, and Burakovsky together. And, basically, we heard Dan Bylsma set the record straight. He said, hey, listen, Darren Brown, you're the only person calling it the fourth line. Overall, I do like these combinations. I think they're better blended than we've seen before. We do see McCann playing that centerman role, though, and that's something that he's done for the Kraken before. So he's stepping into that role once again for this Seattle Kraken team. Healthy scratches, Mahura and Hayden in this game. I thought it was interesting to hear Dan Bylsma also talk a little bit about Mikey Isimon. He talked about, that he is basically someone who is playing tough, playing hard, playing fast. I know I wrote, okay, here we go. This is exactly what he had to say. He said he plays with speed, physicality, and he has forward play, which I really liked. And it felt that when we have Isimon in the game, that there's more action around the net. And I love some data visualization. And so, I have some of that for you that we're going to talk about coming up in the next segment of this episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. And as someone who is looking for interns, is looking for people to work with my own business, I can tell you that being able to take out some of the just effort that it takes to find the right match, if you can do that with a system like Indeed, it's going to save you money, which or it's going to save you time, which saves you money and can even help make you money when you find the right candidate. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by a new sponsor, and that is Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And I've been able to utilize this platform as being one of the hosts of Locked On Kraken here. And I'm actually using Monarch Money for my business account. And what I love is that I can see the cash flow in real time. That's huge for any business. Of course, I love that everything is there, including suggestions on recurring both expenses and recurring income. So of course, I have things like our Patreon page for my business, the income that I get from hosting this show, but I also have specific things that we use every month, and we have expenses or subscriptions, like a subscription to the Seattle Times, so I can keep up with the latest Seattle sports news, and I can see that all on the dashboard. I've used other budgeting, quote unquote, budgeting apps, and I can say already, I really like what I'm seeing with Monarch, especially for my business. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? That's Kraken hockey, baby. We saw some amazing hockey from your Seattle Kraken, and Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, to break it all down, wearing my Pirates hat, a.k.a. the UMA hat, a.k.a. I don't know why the Seattle Kraken got rid of the Davy Jones hat, so I had to do something to kind of keep the tradition alive, and I'm totally glad that I did, because now when we get a win, I get to wear this cool hat with a little dangly medallion. So there you go. In case you're watching on YouTube and wondering, what does that woman have on her head? It's the UMA hat, and the Seattle Kraken get a 5-4 overtime win against Montreal. So the UMA hat is back, baby. And I am super excited. Kraken hockey. What did I like about this game? Well, there was a lot that I liked about this game. And we're going to start by looking at these charts from Natural Stat Trick, starting with the game flow. I mean, from the puck drop. all Kraken all day. You see, even the Kraken had so much momentum that even when we started to see Montreal score, they were able to keep things going. This is Corsi in all scenarios of the game. But what we heard from Dan Bilesma and what Allison Lucan was able to identify in her post-game um, instant analytics is that the Seattle Kraken won multiple battles in this game. They won the shot volume. They were +4 on odd man rushes. They were +10 on high danger chances. They were +6 on slot shots. That's how we saw Montour score. I believe it was his first goal. Well, the second goal was a breakaway. And we'll talk about Monty in a little bit. So it was definitely Montour and Nyman. And I love that they had 2 times the slot danger plays than Montreal in this game. And so what does that look like? Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Here's in all scenarios. We've looked at heat maps for the Seattle Kraken this season, and I have never been this excited to break down a heat map for your Seattle Kraken. Look at this. Look at this. There's action in front of the net. I told you in the previous segment, Isimon, from what we hear from Dan Bilesma, a huge driver in this. We got a tip goal from Matty Beniers on the power play. Just really amazing driving to the net. Again, Allison Lucan talking about the odd man shots, the high danger chances. And when you have, all of these goals here, and I think, you can take a look at the video and see for yourself. I think some of these are probably in a little deeper if we really broke things down. But I love that there was action in front of the net. So when you have players like Isimon, when you have Matty Beniers committing to that, when you have Jani Nyman coming in one-time shot in the slot, these are things that have been missing from the Kraken's game. And I, for one, am happy to see them. I just really loved how this game came together for the Seattle Kraken, if I'm being honest. The Seattle Kraken needed a game like this. We have talked about on the show for the last handful of days that the expectation is that this team has its best hockey ahead of it. And when they play like they did last night, I'm inclined to believe it. Now, of course, I wouldn't be an analyst of the sport of the team without asking the question, why was this missing before? Sure, you can say, what is there to lose? This team's not going to the playoffs. They make some changes. And, maybe we're starting to lean into that fourth F. I have my 3 Fs: fast, forechecking, fun. But then the fourth one, kind of related to fun sometimes, this is a team that's playing free. I don't think that they were overthinking anything. I don't think that they were getting down, even on some of those, again, defensive lapses that led to at least 2 of the Montreal goals. They stayed composed and they played good hockey. They played like players that have been playing hockey and are professional hockey players. The thinking was sharp. We're going to talk about Brandon Montour in the next segment, and I want you to listen to what Montour had to say about his game-winning goal in overtime. But we're going to get to that because I do think Brandon Montour, for a few different reasons, deserves some individual flowers, even though this was a fantastic game by your Seattle Kraken. A few other things in this game worth noting. Montour's overtime winner, fastest goal to start an overtime period in NHL history. We'll get into that soon. Eeli Tolvanen, new single season NHL career high, netting his 19th goal last night. Shares first in goals this season alongside Jaden Schwartz. Matty Beniers got his 4th power play goal of the season, tied for the second most among Kraken skaters. Jordan Eberle, great pass. That pass to Nyman, oh, It was beautiful. All right. Yeah. Jordan Everly played a key role in tonight's win with his first 3-point effort of the season, 3 assists. Everly has recorded 4 points in his past 2 games. Chandler Stephenson set up that game winner. And again, you're going to hear from Brandon Montour about that. Stephenson, with that assist, extended his point streak to 3 games, recording 4 points, 1 goal, and 3 assists in that span. So it's not just one guy. We're getting it from all lines. We're getting it from multiple contributors. And that's Kraken hockey. This is the kind of hockey that the Seattle Kraken dug deep and found this style of game when they were making their push into the playoffs in season 2. This is why this is let me rephrase. This is the vision that Ron Francis, the front office, and the coaching staff had about what this team could do. That game last night, that is pretty darn close to the prototype of a Dan Bilesma team. Grit, forechecking, fast, good wall play, focusing on attacking, getting some odd man rushes, getting in deep to the net, playing south to north, having that play below the goal line to set things up. As I talked about it yesterday. Adam Larson was the focus for Dan Bilesma, but he's telling his team, and especially his defensemen, if that puck is below the goal line, be smart, find the seam so that the guy below the goal line has a target and can connect. And that's how we saw a couple of the goals scored by the Seattle Kraken. I again am sending all of my support to Zame, who was going to go solo for today's episode. Again, not my story to tell, but sending out love and light to Zame. That being said, I was honestly a little bit jealous that he was going to get to talk about this game. So I'm stepping up, pinch hitting, doing whatever it takes for the team so that Zame can focus on the things that are important in life. And I got to say, I'm excited that I got to get in front of the camera and on the microphone and in the UMA hat for this game because, it was exciting to listen to. I was listening on the radio and Everett and Al with the funnel cake call. Oh, baby. That was delicious, if I do say so myself. This is just a feel-good game. The Seattle Kraken will have a morning skate tomorrow and then take on the Utah Hockey Club. They will practice throughout the weekend. At least that's the goal. They have a practice for Saturday scheduled, and then they have another game on Sunday. This is a critical juncture for the Seattle Kraken, not because there's a playoff spot on the line, but because this team has to prove to themselves, to their coaching staff, and to the front office that this team is capable of actually doing what we thought they could do given who they were on paper. And it looked pretty good. It felt pretty good. And there was one player that was dang near off the charts. That's Brandon Montour. We're going to hear a little bit from him and break down his game coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. March Madness is here. That was a mad game for the Seattle Kraken, but FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers will get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. And I love this time of year. I'm not much of a betting woman, but I love looking at FanDuel just to prove that, as I sometimes call it, my auntie vibe is on point. And nothing is better than March Madness for being able to test how good your analysis and maybe a little bit of intuition can do. And FanDuel can help you even make some money off of it. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. Happy to be here to talk about this win, big time win by the Seattle Kraken. But, there was one player that really just stood out quite literally, almost literally off the charts. This is game score. Brandon Montour. Everything shifted all the way over to the right side. Fantastic game, 4-point game for Brandon Montour. He had the 2 goals. He had the first goal set up by Eberle. He then had an assist, secondary assist on both the Jani Nyman goal, power play goal, and the Matty Beniers power play goal. And then, of course, he had the game winner. So big time game for Brandon Montour. He surpassed the record set by Vince Dunn for most single season goals, 15 by Brandon Montour. And you want to talk about somebody delivering. Brandon Montour has been pretty solid. That's a contract I do not question. And I got to say, I've been pretty critical of Chandler Stephenson. But Stevie's starting to step up. Stevie's starting to find his way. He's starting to believe and lean into the Kraken way. And nothing personifies that more than what Brandon Montour said about that final face-off that led to the game-winning goal. Before we get there, though, also just want you to see how your guy, Brandon Montour, is doing comparative to the rest of the league. Top 5 skaters, you can see Brandon Montour up there. Time on ice, he's up there. Offense above average. Defense above average. And you can see his trends in the last 5 games, And so he is a guy that's giving the Seattle Kraken a lot. And I also love that there are no members of the Seattle Kraken in the bottom 5 skaters. But big time for Brandon Montour to really step up for this team. And I'm grateful that he's doing it. But let's hear what Monty had to say. And this is also a little bit of praise, well-deserved, to Chandler Stephenson, because Brandon Montour breaks down how that last play came to pass. And I just freaking love it. Here's Brandon Montour talking to media after yesterday's win.
That was Chandler, to be honest. He came up with it. Again, I don't know what the other guy, I don't even know who was beside me there, but I told Chandler just to make sure he was staying back just in case anything went south, and saw he bump it up, and we went for it, so it was nice to see that one.
Are you aware that's the fastest overtime goal in NHL history?
Yeah, that's what Chandler said. It could have been. We didn't know how quick it was, but again, it was nice for the group to get a big win there.
Brandon, you've had a lot of goals against the Canadiens this season. What do you attribute that to?
Just shooting the puck, really. Guys finding me in the right areas, and some net fronts. And it's nice to see a couple go through. And again, it is what it is with who the team is. But yeah, it's nice when guys trying to find me and get some good looks. Guys going in net, and it's nice to see a couple go in.
I mean, yeah, basically, Monty, we love to see it also. But I love that he was talking about how Chandler Stephenson had that vision, and the confidence, like, you have to have a lot of confidence in your face-offs, but also an awareness of who you're going head-to-head with, maybe even picking up trends as they happen in the games to be able to anticipate. He told Brandon Montour before that face-off, and it's something that we actually heard from Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, that when he would mentor Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, he would be able to break things down, and even depending on the official at the dot, be able to anticipate how to play the puck to be able to win the puck for his team. And obviously, Chandler Stephenson has a little bit of that in him. I'd say more than a little bit. I love that anecdote. Immediately, you see Montour take off. The other forward was Jordan Eberle, by the way. And so they had that. And if you see the replay, Chandler Stephenson celebrating the goal, Eberle comes to him first. And then you start to see, you see Montour, his eyes just kind of light up. And he's like, ah. That's because Chandler Stephenson is skating over. And you can, in that moment, it almost was as if Brandon Montour is like, you crazy son of a gun. It worked. More of this, please. More of this version of the Seattle Kraken. We've got some games coming up this weekend. And of course, we will have you covered here on the Locked On Kraken podcast. Again, want to just send some love and light to Zane Begg. We hope to have him back soon. But, on behalf of Zane and I, a reminder, please, please, please be kind to yourself. And hopefully that will open you up to be kind to other people. And we always hold fast. We stay true. And we say, let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.